I'm very happy to be here and hoping that this can be a conversation about how we can all make good on the promise of data science for everyone. So the Data Science Academy's goal is to operationalize this idea that data science is for everyone. But what does that really mean? So before I tell you, all the things we're trying to do to make that true, I would really appreciate if people could put in the chat, what could that mean to make data science be for everyone? And I will just wait for a few minutes for everyone as much as possible to add an idea in the chat about what this could mean. And I'll read them aloud for accessibility as they pop up. Data science in all majors, K-12, all majors, people in fields that we wouldn't identify as STEM. So we talked about, so this is sort of level of education, flavor of education, what else? Okay, so public science, maybe getting out there and people in all walks of life, data literacy for communities, everyday people. So that's so interesting, right? So I asked a question and we had two answers that were almost exactly the same. We're in the same flavor. And did you hear that wait time, that pause? And then 4 more popped up that had this additional level of inclusivity of additional types of people that also have very similar resonance with them. So one kind of accessibility is this wait time that I just did. So I just gave you an example of making data science for everyone. There's those of us like me who are the really quick speakers. I always got something to say really fast. There's also deep thinkers that think more deeply than me, that if you wait a little while, you get those additional thoughts that are so important in conversations. So I also see have tools and techniques available to a broader range of people. So now we're talking about making sure that the tools of data science are accessible, or maybe that the usability of those things are going to work for people. So thank you for those ideas. And if you have more as we're talking, in particular, if I say something that we're doing at NC State, and you're doing it either the same way or a little bit a different flavor of it, it would be really wonderful if you'll continue to put things in the chat so that this isn't just me telling you what we're doing, but really a conversation about how first of all, in our different organizations, you have a different context, so you may need to do things in different ways, but also we want to give each other ideas, and I just have one set of ideas about what you might do. So here's my set of ideas that I tried to think about ahead of time that I thought you all might bring up. So one thing I think a lot about is accessibility. I think about the colors that I'm using. I had a colleague that doesn't see any color at all. So I always think, can you understand what I'm trying to communicate with my data if you do not see any color at all? If everything's basically, if you convert it to grayscale, is this going to be readable? As well as all the other forms of accessibility, captioning, and those kinds of things. Learners with different prior experiences and goals. So not just that, like, what level you're at, but where are you trying to go in the future, right? Where are you trying to get to with this data science experience? You all mentioned multiple disciplines. I think another aspect of making things for everyone is not having a one-size-fits-all pathway of learning. So what are different ways to create pathways that people could follow to get where they want to go? What if you really mess up? Like, if you really mess up because of whatever, is that going to be a fatal problem for you and you're going to exit? Or are you going to be like, oh, well, I fell down, I got to stand up, right? You're on a team, you lose one game, you win the next game. Are there ways to help people, as we always say in engineering, fail? Well, we don't really always mean that, right, in academia, because we have a transcript and that maybe always stays there. And so how do we have ways that people can try things out and also have a lot of choices not only in what class, or what kinds of data, what kinds of tools. I think these choices can be super empowering and also can be more inclusive to allow people to find their own pathways. And then within a certain course or experience, making sure that we're inclusive of all the kinds of identities and intersectionalities that may enter that space. So I hope this is helpful. And if you think of some ways that you and your organization have been addressing any of these things. I'm still learning all the time about these things, and I want to know what you're up to. So for me, I was brought into NC State to start the Data Science Academy, which is a totally new concept at NC State. We've been going about 1.5 years. Now we have 2 more academies, so I have colleagues to talk about, but still pretty much we're doing all the things first. So we have to create infrastructure and ways of doing things and contracts and, I don't know, ways of getting through curriculum committees when you're not a department, always for the first time. And then we're sort of groundbreakers, and then other academies can follow, which is great. And we're all sitting in the provost office under the university interdisciplinary programs. So even when I started, the word interdisciplinary wasn't a huge piece of things, but now everything I do is sort of framed with how interdisciplinary is it. So I'll start telling you the things that we do. And these are things to sort of reach all across the university in data science. So one big category of things that academies do now that we've defined is research enablement. And what this means is we might bring in a big research grant, but more likely we would convene a group that would try to bring in a large research grant, or we would give seed grants to create new interdisciplinary teams across the university. And I know South Big Data Hub also does this kind of work. So it's nice, for us to think together, like, how are our seed grants working? How do we assess them? I think there's some really creative ways of assessing proposals that are also more inclusive. For example, I learned of one person in the Netherlands that when they look at seed grants or other proposals, they decide whether they're over the bar or not. And if those proposals are over the bar and considered fundable, then it's a lottery. And they just do the lottery until all the money's gone. And I think that that's encouraging, because what it means, especially in interdisciplinary work, is if you don't have someone on that panel that can especially champion your work because they're in your discipline, or don't especially hate your work because they're in your discipline, it can go both ways, right? It can be more inclusive. So we're just thinking a lot about how can we run our processes, even within something like a seed grant, to be more welcoming of data science for everyone. We help people find each other, and we also have a big consulting arm. So we have graduate research assistants. This is a program with our libraries. So traditionally, you think of going to a library to borrow a book. If you come to NC State and you're part of our community, you can come to the library and get data science help. You can say, why is my code broken? You can say, how can I make these 6 spaghetti codes work together from my 6 grad students or undergraduate students? I don't understand. Can you make a workflow for me? I can say, I'm trying to study this and I don't know which algorithm I should be thinking about for this type of data. So we have hourly library employees, we have joint employees, and then we have consultants that can work on longer term projects. So this is really exciting. And we've been funded by the Sloan Foundation to think about this more broadly through a national group of people that run consulting arms like this. We also have courses. So we started thinking, how can we create courses where all the people on the left could be a learner, but then they could also eventually become a teacher? And how can you bring people into data science courses so that if they're a spectator and they're just like, I've heard of it, but I'm not really doing it, or they feel like, oh, I'm really new, or yes, I'm into it, I'm learning it, or I'm practicing it, or I'm even innovating it. Like, how do we create courses at all of these levels for people? So we have 3 course levels, and these are just some of the names of the courses that we've stood up so far. All of these courses are 1 credit classes. They're all project-based. They have a rule: no quizzes, no tests, which is another way that we think we're making this learning more accessible to learners who may be more shy. We also think it's just more workplace relevant to do projects and homework and group work rather than quizzes and tests. So the National Science Foundation has funded 4 postdocs. So we are hiring right now. If you know of somebody who might like to come into a postdoc, your PhD can be any age. So we've had department chairs inquire about our postdoc to come in and study our ADAPT learning model, which is all campus data science accessible project-based teaching and learning, which has 3 elements: that it's all project-based. I already mentioned identity conscious choices. And then we have 10 common learning elements. And those are things like wrestle with an ethical issue, show an open problem in data science. So we have 10 things that we'd like to have happening, no matter which class it is that you're taking. So we're super excited. The applications are still open to come in and be part of this diverse cohort of people studying our learning. And in our first 3 semesters, we already drew from all the colleges of the university, and we had faculty in our very beginning classes. We've had staff in our classes. We've had alumni in our classes, and they've drawn from 100 majors and over 50 programs. And a program might be a department or a center, or some other kind of program. And so now we're building our demographic reporting. We're going to be very serious about looking at who we're attracting, who we're missing. If we're missing people, we're going to figure out why. And then we're going to figure out how to be even more welcoming to people that maybe we're not providing the right course for them, or we're not, or the experience that they're having in the course isn't working for them. And so learning from your failures as well as your successes is something we want to make sure that we're doing. We're also funded to provide data internships for social impact. So we're super excited that our Career Services Center has a grant to put people in 20 internships in rural North Carolina. And we will be, for the first time, introducing a data component into these internships. So super excited to get that going. And we also have some funding from COMAP to bring data science into high schools that have never done anything with mathematical modeling or data science. So we have a cohort that includes English teachers, science teachers, and math teachers that have recently come together to think about how data could be a part of their classroom. And even just by having 3 or 4 conversations, they said that their daily planning has already changed. So not just thinking about a data science lesson, but just their regular lesson in English or science or mathematics is changing because they're already thinking, what are the data I could be talking about as I'm teaching this this subject to my students? And so that's so exciting, because it doesn't mean you have to have a separate course, right, in order for teachers to be bringing this data-informed thinking into the classroom, which is yet another way of thinking about data science being for everyone, not just for our students, but also for our teachers, like our English teacher, who are like, I don't know why I'm here. And then he's coming up with all of these ideas, like about how you can track your own data and write about your, own data and get into it. Another thing we've been asked to do on campus is some data jams. So this Ag Data Science Jam on the right was actually for more senior people, like for faculty and for grad students. And then we had a undergraduate ASA Data Fest that we're doing again this year, that we've opened to students from other institutions. So if you're nearby and you want to bring some students to our Data Fest, some of these are very competitive. Ours is super collaborative. We will have grad students around helping the teams. And last year we had the teams helping each other. So we're really trying to create a community of fun and challenges. And really, for every team, we're going to try to recognize something we thought they did really well. So it's not just about winners and losers, but about recognizing what you did. Another thing we did was our campus has career fairs that are very subject-based, and we created an all-campus career fair for data science with the cooperation actually of some of the larger career fairs. So rather than being viewed as competition, they actually sent some of their employers to our career fair because it was smaller, it was more focused. And so again, in a very collaborative way, building that up. And we were just in our first year to bring in 4 different grants. We actually just stopped grant writing because I was like, we don't even like have the staff up to speed on being able to, do all these things yet. So we actually had to pause for a minute. We did have another recent award from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. But I mentioned, I think, all of these things to you so far. So data.org is super interested in building these internships and capacity and financial inclusion and other kinds of aspects of bringing a diverse group of learners. We have a consortium that are almost all HBCUs and MSIs, except NC State and University of Chicago. So we feel very fortunate to be included in that group of really excellent institutions that can teach us a lot. And then COMAP does the K-12, the Sloan Foundation does the consulting, NSF has the postdocs. And then in Health and Human Services, we're doing some upskilling for them of their employees. So we're super excited to partner. We would love to have, we always have a little extra room in our 1-credit classes, and some of them are online. So there's no reason your students couldn't come in and take some of our online 1-credit project-based classes if you would like. We've had students from Meredith College already taking, and we're working with Morehouse on having some students take some internship focused classes in the future. So, please reach out if you'd like to sign students up for a credit or 2. There's probably ways to do that. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on how we can make good on our promises. So thanks so much for the opportunity. And I don't know if we have a little time, but I'd just love to hear what people are up to. Oh, I can't hear you, Renata.
Yeah, that was great, Rachel. So I have a little bit of time. So if people have comments or questions about what Rachel is doing, or if you're doing something similar where you are. I'll give you a second. I have a question, but I'll wait. Okay, so we'll give people a minute or two. I'm gonna ask a question. I guess I'm a quick question asker. Um, so in
That's why
your
you're the facilitator.
but in your process of looking at facilitating research as well as teaching, do you see where you sit in the university to be a benefit for that? For instance, if you're in an office of research, is there a more clear focus on research or on teaching or on this consulting piece? I see really kind of three arms. And we have another question too. So do you have a
Is your
primary
is your
focus?
is your question like whether there's intersectionality, or is your question, do I have to focus on one or more than the
Do you
others?
have a primary focus or are they equally weighted for
I
the
was told to hit all points of the mission: teaching, research, outreach, partnerships. So
okay.
so far, I would say, luckily I'm a Libra. I just have the scales and I try to balance all the things. But,
Mhm,
I don't think so. I mean, there in any large institution for sustainability, you have to think about which pieces bring in resources and what's a source and what's a sink.
mhm,
And undergraduate education is generally not a source,
mhm,
right, in our
mhm,
institutions, because especially in data science, the amount you pay somebody to teach data science is greater than what you can bring in, right,
mhm,
through any kind of disbursement of funds. And so that's a huge challenge. So if you're going to be really robust and wonderful with your undergraduate education and do all these things, you have to think about what other kinds of things you can do to support them. Or they can be strategically funded, right, as part of just the university's mission. And so these are the things that we think about a lot. And the balance is, well, it's actually good to have a portfolio that's mixed, so that
mhm.
some aspects of things may be able to support other aspects.
Nice, nice. Irvin has a question here. It says, who teaches all of the one unit courses?
Yeah, so that's been super fun. So we have faculty, we have postdocs, we have grad students, we have alumni, we have people in industry and government, and yeah, and so really everybody that I can meet. I'm always in recruitment mode. Credit class, everyone I meet, I pretty much say, that I think is an excellent communicator and that has serious data science chops. You're probably going to get an offer from me to teach a one credit class, and not just teach one, but design one. And for the people in industry, it's really fun to say, what do you need the most? What are you missing in the people that you're hiring? Come teach one credit, and then you can scout people, and you can hire from there. And that's been really super fun. We are offering right now 20 credits each semester, so 40 a year. So it's pretty many units, and it's all online what the names of those classes are.
Hmm.
And then I am reading the long comment, which I really appreciate. Communicating successes and failures. A school was reporting that women weren't enrolling in certain grad programs because of being scared of tech. And they looked at the people who didn't choose to enroll instead of focusing on the people who had enrolled, like the majors. And it says, unfortunately, the stats are not always reported or collected in that way. Yeah, and yeah, definitely not a critique. We have to talk about our struggles, right? But if my intonation didn't emphasize the right things, please correct me, because sometimes your intonation might make what you said sound different than what you intended to say.
Yeah, do you want to you can unmute Debray and just say, what you were thinking as well.
Oh, all I was actually saying is that the focus of some things that weren't going well was men versus women, and people who had been accepted to a program but did not enroll. And they were not also looking at things like what were the majors of these people. So they were identifying women as being scared of technology and not perhaps liberal arts majors being scared of technology. They didn't keep those kind of stats. So what was reported back was women aren't enrolling in our program because they're scared of tech. I teach a lot of students who are in a master's program in analytics, and there are lots of women there. So that was an overstatement, and it was an attempt to bring women into the program, actually. But what it did for future women that may be looking at the program is going, oh, well, this school reports back that women don't come, that women may even feel that they're not welcome, that there
Yeah,
may be a barrier there. And so what was intended to be a positive wound up being a very negative, in part because they decided to look just simply at a male female dynamic. And so just a caution that, you know, that in
yeah, how to
reporting back
interpret.
concerns.
Thank you
So,
so much. I really appreciate that. And it has
and
such a wonderful data component, like, you know, why we need statisticians in the room, in particular kind of component there. The other thing you made me think is that maybe the women got better offers elsewhere because they're in great demand.
and that was also, you know, who knows? I sometimes what gets reported back, you know,
yeah,
how you get that, and you may have categories, and the other category, you know, may be too complicated for you to really get a lot of reporting back. So yeah,
yeah,
you know, again, don't know exactly, but the stat as it was reported to a meeting was just women don't come because they're scared of technology. And so
yeah,
a very broad over generalization there. And again,
yeah,
my concern really was future women who might hear that coming
yeah,
to a place that's
absolutely.
very tech oriented, you know, might get a very unfortunate outcome from that. So again, thank you for all your time. I didn't mean to
Yeah, and it's
take too much.
interesting to think like how you might get some of the stories of your women students that out there. You know what I mean? Like what could a
Yes.
counter messaging proposed sort of campaign look like for you to get some positive stories out there that students could see about the awesome things your women are doing in tech and how not scared of it they are?
And I will say, on a very positive note for Georgia
Yeah,
Tech, Georgia Tech really does attempt to get that positive message out there. And so
yeah,
it was very odd to also hear some reporting that seemed to be from a slightly different perspective. But Georgia Tech really does try to
yeah.
get that positive messaging out there.
Yeah, and I wonder if they, I mean, it doesn't seem too late to go back and ask some questions, right? And to interview some people that didn't come and say, you
Oh,
know,
certainly during that meeting, I was asking
yeah,
the person to break down those statistics, and that's how I found out that, oh, so these are women who didn't come to a particular program, but were accepted, which hadn't been part of the message originally, but also that they didn't know if these were liberal arts majors that were making these statements, or if these were people that had a degree in math, you know, or engineering undergrad. So,
yeah,
you know,
I love your thoughtfulness. And I also it's just a good cautionary tale for all of us who care about data, you know, to work with the folks that are working with our data that we really care about, to think with them about, you know, how, because, you know, some of these things are done with the best of intentions. As you said, this was with really seriously good intentions, right? And then, you know, if there could be potentially unintentional consequences, how do we just build those bridges so that people will come and talk to us about things in the future and view us as a resource for these kinds of things? We're doing a lot of interviewing of students, and so that's what led me to like thinking about how rich the information we're getting when you kind of go beyond the stats and then start asking some questions about why did you take this class, or why did you take this class instead of that class?
Yeah.
and I will also
we
say
have
that
some
in that
resources
particular meeting, and I think this is true in a lot of different spheres, is why I bring it up. But the particular person who was reporting back these stats, I don't think particularly had a STEM background, and so was reporting, you know, back something and then realizing that he actually had more information. And so it became a very insightful thing during this discussion. But again, if that one original message had gotten out there, women don't come because they're scared of technology, it would have been very unfortunate. So again, having more of a discussion instead of trying to just have a soundbite. And if it's a soundbite, being very careful what the soundbite is. And again, thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Devray. And we'll look, you know, we also want to be a resource as well. So we're close by as well too. So thank you for coming. Carl, I think you were next in the urban, and then we're gonna cycle around.
I have two questions, one of which is very short. So Rachel, for those postdocs, are you open to people being remote, or are you really looking for them to be on campus? Yeah.
At this point, we're on campus. Yeah.
I was afraid of that. The second question is for all those 1 credit courses, are you getting people to make them in models or methods that are shareable or sort of like transferable to other places? So at Trinity, we've been looking to sort of implement some of these sort of small courses in much of the same way. It's that low level where we can't run the upper ones, but it would be awesome if we were able to be pulling materials for some of those 1 credit classes and reusing them in to
Yeah,
finish
I think what we would do probably, we have a part of a proposal with Wake Tech for some of their faculty to sit in on our classes and become part of our learning community. So if you wanted to pilot something, you know, any of you wanted to pilot something, we have a teaching community that meets every other week and, you know, has support for teaching in this way. And we would welcome that, sort of broadening the use of the courses and the materials. So just reach out, anybody, if you want to think through what that would look like, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
So Irvin, and I see Noah.
I'll try to be quick. I want to say thank you for your presentation. I think it's amazing what you're doing there. I love NC State. I was a postdoc there for a couple of years. Thanks for answering my question earlier, but I had another question about the program itself, because when I left NC State, I think they had or were building a data science college already, like a separate one. Did the provost office like initiate creating this academy, or we're trying to create more of a data science thing here at Fresno State as well. So I was wondering how could we get the university more in on data science and try to do more of these programs to involve students in data science?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm happy. I think a good way to do it is to bring people in for program review. Like I've definitely been a lever for change at other institutions by just coming in, because you get to talk to the upper administration sometimes on those report outs at the end. And so that can be a way to reach upper administration with a different voice than the inside voices that are always saying things. And sometimes, you know, I've definitely in program review had upper administration say, oh, you know, I think they've been saying that, but I never quite heard it before, you know, in the way that you're saying it. So let's talk about, you know, like how we could exchange ideas. I think University of San Antonio is also doing some interesting things through the provost level. I don't think NC State ever, well, I don't know, but I haven't been aware of it starting a new school of data science. We have very rich programs in data science. We have the Institute for Advanced Analytics, which is a professional master's program that's been going on a really long time. We have a number of centers in AI and analytics and things like that, but we didn't ever have any, and every college has faculty that now identify as being involved in data science, every single college. It's amazing. But we didn't have anything that was really overarching to pull everybody together and get that interdisciplinary kinds of things going and step into the spaces that maybe it wasn't as easy for one college to step into. I should say that these 1-credit classes, we're wrapping them up into 12-credit certificates, where 6 of the credits come from us, and then the depth courses, like 2, 3-credit classes, come from a department. So it's another way of sort of building credentialing that leans on these 1-credit classes, but then folds in with departmental initiatives, and then the department gets to name the certificate and sort of own it in that way, but we will administer it. And so this is just something we're starting up right now. So I'll let you know how it goes in about a year or two.